Hi, my name's Jennifer Petersen. Thank you for watching my Me as a Reader presentation. I would like to basically give credit to my reading to my mother. I remember ever since we were little, we were always reading together. And even now, whenever I think of my mom, I picture her in the chair reading a book. I remember her being the children's librarian at our public library, and my favorite thing to do with her was always to do finger plays. And we had them memorized, and then we would go home and do them over and over again. My favorite memory of my mom and I reading was a book called Scruffy. It was not a picture book, it was a chapter book, and I remember sitting in our kitchen in our green velvet chair, much like the one shown here, and she would read it to us every day after lunch. We would check that book out over and over and over again. And it was sad at the end, and I can remember crying, and I can remember my mother crying. So that had quite an impact on me. I was a very good reader. I was basically good at school, so reading was never difficult for me. My favorite reading teacher was my third grade teacher, Miss Elgersma. And one of the reasons I liked her so much is because she would free read to us, read aloud to us. So my favorite book that she read was Where the Red Fern Grows. And I'll never forget sitting there and she was crying at the sad part, and my friends and I were crying. Although at that time I'm not sure if we were crying because of the book or because our teacher was crying. But this is also one of my favorite parts about teaching school now. I teach second grade, and this is one of the books that I've read every year for 16 years. And every year I get very choked up at the same places. And some years in different classes, I have had students get so upset, and it makes me so pleased that they're so into the book and the characters that they feel the same thing the characters are feeling. I remember when I was young, my mom and dad always had the TV guide, and it was the most intriguing thing I've ever seen. It had the best horoscope in it and the articles in it, and I can remember sitting in the chair reading it from cover to cover and finding our television shows that we watched and reading what they were going to be about. I can also remember my dad reading the paper, and as a farmer, he was always reading farm journals. So there was lots of reading going on in my family when I was young. As an adult, I have really, there was probably a while I was in college and a little bit out of college where I kind of was not doing a lot of reading. But now that I have gotten even older, I find myself wanting to read all the time. Um, the classes I took this summer made me realize how much I enjoy reading about the education profession and learning about reading in general. I also, anytime I can, I try to read. I find I have 4 kids, and with a full-time job, and my husband is a coach, I don't always get the time to read, but when I do, it's very difficult for me to put a book down. I have learned over the years I cannot read before I go to bed because I get to the point where it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm still reading and I don't want to put my book down. So I know I can't read before bed. Um, I would say my favorite time to read is during the summer because then that's all I have to think about. I can just sit down and read, and the kids can do whatever they want. However, in the last 2 years, I have made it a point to try and read while school is going on. And I think the reason for that is because we started doing the daily 5 in my classroom. And so while the kids are reading, I am also modeling how to read. And so I've been able to read during the day. And truth be told, there are times sometimes I don't want to stop. I would like to put the timer back on for another 5, 10 minutes so that I can finish the part where I'm at. And I think that I sometimes tell the kids that because I think it's good for them to see their teacher reading and enjoying what they're doing. I tend to read trilogies. It's just the perfect amount for me. I get so involved with the characters in the first book, and then by the third book, I'm ready for it to be over and to start something new. But just one book isn't enough because, like I said, I just get so wrapped up into the characters. And I also tend to read the young adult trilogies. My sister makes fun of me because I'm always reading teenager books. But every once in a while, I have to throw in a little bit of smut just to keep things exciting as I'm reading once in a while. Um, it's funny to think about reading strategies as an adult, but I would say as an adult, I basically use the same strategies that I teach my kids. I use context clues, using the words around them. If it's a word that I've never seen before, I break it into chunks and I try to figure out if I can see parts of words in there. So a lot of the word attack skills that I use as an adult are the same word attack skills that I teach my kids as second graders. And during the Daily Five, I love it when I come to a situation like that because afterwards, when we all come together, I try to show them. I will write the word on the board and then I will show them. I didn't know this word. This is how I did, how I had to figure it out so that they can see that I have to use those strategies sometimes too. Me as a literacy coach, I think reading comprehension is so very important. I feel like there's a lot of stress put on being able to read fluently, which, don't get me wrong, is very important. But sometimes I think we stress how fast we're reading. We don't always think about if kids are understanding what they're reading. And what's the point of reading if you're not understanding what you're reading? So as a literacy coach, I think I see myself really diving into the reading comprehension problems and trying to figure out why kids are having the trouble they are reading. Um, Also, being able to know those word attack skills and being able to model them as I use them myself, I think will help me as a literacy coach. Um, I don't know. Reading comprehension is you have to read everything and understand everything that you're reading in the world. And so it's so very, very important. I am very excited for this class to learn more about how to help those kids that are having trouble understanding what they are reading. Thank you very much.